week in the US, which means that there's going to be volatility all over the markets. We have a CPI print on Thursday, so the fun is going to continue. Thank you for watching today's show. I am Jeremy, joined by Kevin. Please, before we get started, like today's stream, subscribe to our channel, and most importantly, nothing we say is financial advice. We're just giving you our opinions on what's going on in the markets. Kev, it's going to be a very fun week. We had some, data last Friday that was kind of promising, kind of not. How you feeling about everything today?
Honestly, today I feel no different than I felt last week, but it's a little bit calmer in the markets as of right now. So, just taking this nice quiet day for today right now.
Yeah, we're seeing just a lot of, the Dow, NASDAQ and S&P are kind of sideways. Dow's up a bit. A lot of crypto is moving sideways, except for Matic, which is pumping back up again, which I love to see. But it seems like, a lot of people, volume is low as well, on trading right now. So it just feels like a lot of people are kind of sitting back, seeing how the elections play out tomorrow for the midterms here in the United States, as well as the CPI data on Thursday. So I think, tomorrow's election could impact the markets Wednesday. CPI obviously going to impact it Thursday and Friday. Let's start with the midterms. What are you kind of expecting to see there, and how do you think that's going to impact markets?
I personally don't think the midterms are going to have too much of an effect on the markets itself, especially crypto. I think crypto might trade more technically than it would based on news for that event. Okay. There's a lot of shorts currently opening up, so I wouldn't be surprised by another short squeeze. We don't have the funding for it at the moment, but I think, as the week goes on, if more shorts keep opening up, we could see a little bit of a pump, but that would be right before the CPI data. So I expect it to be a little bit sideways, maybe a little bit bullish short term, like extremely short term. But I'm not too worried about the election itself. I'd be more concerned about the CPI data.
Yeah, for sure. On the election side of things, I did read some historical information over the weekend. So over the last 19 midterm elections, the markets performed better in the 6 months after the midterms and the 6 months before them. However, I don't think that's going to be the case this time around, because the main driver for that positive sentiment after the elections was the fact that there is a lot of government spending that went down. A new Congress comes in, they want to spend, they want to deliver on what they promised. Well, right now, that's not going to be the case. We're not going to see, presumably, the money printer is not going to be going back on with inflation as hot as it is right now. A lot of these people are running on the fact that inflation is high and the economy is in a bad place. So I have no expectation to see the markets go up, meaningfully in the next 6 months based on the fact that it's purely the midterm election.
Yeah, that makes the most sense. If there's no money flowing in the economy, no one's going to be buying.
Yeah, and then, with the CPI data coming out Thursday morning, it's forecasted for 0.6% month over month increase, 7.9% year over year. That's a fun number. So, you and I were talking before the show started. I went back and looked at the rate hike so far this year, and it wasn't until just a few months ago, back in June, that we started to get the meaningful 75 basis point hikes. And it's, the people who expect that rate hikes are going to impact inflation immediately, that's just not how it works, right? This takes time. We've talked about this. And so I'm seeing this as it's most likely that we're going to get another hot reading. Are we going to get, 8% year over year, 8.2? Because it's going to take many months until these rate hikes have an impact. And even at that point, if we look out long term, maybe April of next year will have been the 6 month mark from when the funds rate started to get to a point where it could impact inflation. So I don't really know, what else to think other than that. I think it's going to be another hot inflation reading.
Oh, definitely. I think I'd be more surprised if it was anything bullish. I think most people are anticipating this is going to be pretty hot.
Yeah, and it being after the election, I don't know if that was if it was scheduled like that off the bat, or if that was kind of how it was set up. But I think if it had been a number before the election, it could have definitely impacted it to some extent. Not swing everything, but it could have had an impact. And then we also have initial jobless claims coming out later this week on Thursday, I believe, as well. Right when CPI comes out, forecast for 219K. We did have jobs data. I believe that was last Friday. correct?
Yeah.
That came out came out with unemployment up to 3.7%, but 261,000 jobs were added. So the labor market is just going to give the Fed the green light to keep putting out these 75-point hikes. And right now it's 50-50 as to whether or not the December number is going to be 50 or 75 basis points. The CPI data on Thursday will go a long way in moving that in one direction or the other. So we also have in the tech sector, it is just layoff season now. We have Meta getting ready to lay off a bunch of people. Twitter laid off a bunch of people, but now they're bringing some of them back because Elon may have realized that he bit off a little bit more he could chew, and he could chew by just laying everyone off at once. And then we have Apple warning of production issues amid COVID restrictions, as well as decreasing demand. So it's not great out there, and there's not a whole lot to be bullish about right now.
Yeah, tech stocks look terrible at the moment. It's bloody for them. It's just the outlook too for the next few months. I mean, might be some great deals coming.
Yeah, it was funny. I saw a chart that showed some of the biggest losers this year, and some of these tech stocks are like 70 and 90% down, but Bitcoin is too volatile for people. It's like, I think we can kind of lay that narrative to bed that crypto is the only highly volatile market out there. Like this year has been exhibit A as to why all of these things are volatile, can be volatile in the short term, which is why you either need to be very good at trading, or for the majority of people, just be willing to stick it out, long term.
Yeah, definitely seems to bounce back, even if it is volatile in the short term. Like the last time the CPI print came out, I mean, dropped 1,000, went back up at 2,000 or whatever it was. So, usually levels off after the news comes out.
Yeah, for sure. And I have a lot of exposure to tech stocks still. And I mean, the reason that I still hold them, I'm still holding them at this point, not trying to move out of them, is and I think this is where people get messed up, is they think that they can, okay, I'm going to sell it now and they'll just buy back in later. But, I have to take into account myself. I've been holding these for a long time. I'm profitable on them. I also have to pay taxes on that. So when I'm deciding whether or not I need to sell, I have to be okay, I'm going to be paying, for most of them, long-term capital gains. So if I sell, I'm looking to buy back in later. I have to really nail the price I'm going to be back in for it to be a worthwhile trade on my part, which is why sometimes you just gotta sit through it and not try to time the bottom of these things. Otherwise, you're going to sell, have less money to put into it. If you miss that dip, or if it comes back sooner than expected, you're going to end up with less shares than you had before. So it's just I don't think now is the time to panic sell, even though things don't look great, because you're really setting yourself up to screw yourself in the long term.
Yeah, I've definitely had trades in the past where you end up doing that, and then the market just bounces right back. It's the portfolio is just looking a lot shorter than it was previous.
For sure. What other news we have? I want you to get into the FTX stuff, because that is very interesting, and you understand that way better than I do. So, unless you have anything else, I would like you to get into that and kind of give me the story there, because that was interesting when I pulled up our show notes and you had put in a lot of information on that.
Yeah, so it's a lot of information. FTX for the past 2 to 3 months has slowly been turning into the villain of crypto in the entire crypto space. Sam Bankman-Fried was one of the dudes who was talking before Congress back when we heard about Mongoose Coin, but he's slowly become the villain, and it's pretty insane. So on Saturday, I saw that there was a huge whale wallet that moved FTT token, which is FTX's token. It was 23 billion tokens to Binance, and that's a huge institutional move. And I didn't know who it was or what it could have been, but it was interesting that it was moved not onto FTX itself, but it was sold, moved to Binance. And then Sunday morning, we found out that CZ, the CEO of Binance, announced that he was going to liquidate his entire position of FTT token. And a huge reason for that was that he doesn't want to be associated with bad players in the space. Let me find the exact tweet that he had sent out. He said he won't support people who lobby against other industry players behind their back. In a follow-up tweet, we learned that liquidating the FTT is just post-exit risk management, learning from Luna. We gave support before, but we won't pretend to make love after the divorce. We are not against anyone, but we won't support people who lobby against other industry players behind their backs and onwards. So he's pretty, it's almost like he wants to de-risk from FTX. Like there's something that we currently don't know that he clearly has some insight on. And as you know, SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, is also found an investing firm, which is Alameda Research. And the CEO of Alameda came out and said that they would purchase all of the FTT that Binance was dropping at $22 a share, just so that the market wouldn't see that impact of a mass liquidation event. And on top of that, they said that the $10 billion worth of assets are not accounted for on the balance sheet, which is the reason why a lot of people are speculating that FTX is potentially insolvent at this time. I don't know if they are insolvent. You know, I haven't, I'm not going to look at their balance sheet and pretty much guess whether they are or not. It seems pretty Celsius-ish. Celsius was like, oh, everything's okay, 2 days prior. And then 2 days later, it completely just blew up. People couldn't withdraw any funds. I saw some people currently on Twitter are unable to withdraw some funds from FTX. I don't know if it's just their account having issues, but there's a lot of stuff going on currently.
Yeah, I will be honest. I saw it this morning. I did have some funds in FTX, and I got them out immediately. Like just because I was like, I don't know if there's something here. I don't want to be messing with it. I saw what happened when people had money that got trapped in Celsius. I do not want to go through all of that.
And personally, as a trader, I would never use FTX. I absolutely despise that exchange. I've never seen so much, I won't say manipulation, but I will never see so much fat order cells come in out of nowhere, and it just causes limits to go right through, and it's just nonstop liquidity hunting. So I'm not a fan of FTX. I don't have any money on it. I'm not going to put my money in an exchange that's against its own customers. So do what you will with that, but there's a good chance this could be a black swan event if it ends up being true.
Wow. Okay. That's, and the FTX they've made it clear that they want to try to expand as well. Like they got into the stock game. They purchased 7% ownership of Robinhood, I want to say, SBF did. And they've been throwing money around this year, and with how bad tech is doing, and a lot, Robinhood, we talked about their earnings and how down that's been. It wouldn't surprise me if some of these people who got super aggressive, and we saw it with Three Arrows Capital, people who were really smart can still screw up in a big way. They can get overconfident. They can get caught up in the hype and the FOMO just as much as, much smaller people like you and I can. So, there's definitely some red flags out there that people should be paying attention to.
And one thing that really freaked me out was I saw the market cap of FTT token, and it was, I believe, as of right now, it's around 3 billion, but Binance liquidated, or they're going to liquidate $584 million worth of the asset. That means that's probably going to bring the price down considerably. And FTT token took off. There's not a lot of support below that. I think the next level of support would be something like $9. And it's currently trading at 22, 23-ish. So,
okay.
It's a bit scary.
Yeah, it's a bit scary to say the least. And I mean, we can't say one way or another whether it's going to happen, but it's something to be aware of. And if you've had second thoughts about whether or not you should keep your money on there, maybe it's a good idea to not. But that's just my opinion. Let's get into, I know that you've been looking a lot at the liquidations that are going on, and it sounds like we saw quite a few over the weekend. Why don't you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, so as of last night, Sunday night, we saw something around 116 million liquidated from the entire crypto space. ETH had 24 million worth of liquidations. Bitcoin was at 21 million. And then Doge and Solana, respectively, were at 7 million, 6 million. Going back to FTX, Solana is also part of that entire deal. I believe SBF has a huge holding or partnership with Solana. So I think people got a little bit spooked there. That's why they started trading that. People got liquidated. But those are actually pretty big numbers. I wouldn't expect that for a Sunday. Usually volume does come in, but we saw the Bitcoin drop price over the weekend. I think it was at like 28 down from 24 on Friday, or 21.4 on Friday. So the market moved a little bit. It's currently sitting at about 140 million liquidations as of the past 24 hours. ETH is leading Bitcoin. It's pretty much the same, except Solana is taking third place over Doge.
Okay. How about some of the price action that's been going on, as well as, the technical analysis you've been doing on BTC?
Yeah, so Bitcoin closed, what was it? Closed the week overbought. That was the main thing I wanted to see. The weekly close was definitely overbought. We saw a pretty positive week. It's stuck in that range from between 21 and 21.5 the entire weekend, finally dropping after the close last night. On the daily, like I said, it's overbought. There's definitely room for downward price action. I think we're seeing a little bit of that today. However, I wouldn't be surprised if there's still a short squeeze in Bitcoin. I think there's a good chance that a lot of people are shorting the market right now, really afraid that the CPI data is going to be coming in hot. And I'm not sure if we're going to see a good move to the downside unless there's a lot of liquidity and a lot of people who are trapped. So I wouldn't be surprised if we go back to that range that we've been trading at. Maybe even get a double top at like 21.4, 21.5 around there.
Okay. Let's talk about the DXY. I know that's another one that you've been closely keeping an eye on. How are we looking, on those levels?
DXY, we're doing pretty good. Definitely pulled back a little bit. We were focusing on that 109. That was the level that we would see possibly a potential bounce from. It looks like it's pivoting a little bit on the daily, which is good, which means it's coming hopefully towards that 109 level. It's a good support on the weekly. That's the 20 estimated moving average. So if we can see it bounce from there and potentially Bitcoin and all these other alts start to pump a little bit, there would be a good reversal, I would anticipate, on the weekly, which could drive us into December, January, and hopefully we're starting to hit the levels that we're expecting. Again, I don't hope that these levels get hit because obviously people lose money when stuff like that is, but there's definitely a good chance that we're going to start seeing some macro moves to the downside if the DXY takes its next leg up, which I would anticipate being its last.
Okay, and then let's round it out with some altcoin updates. We've been talking a lot: Ethereum, Chainlink, Polygon, Cardano, Solana. Let's kind of break those down one by one as well.
Absolutely. So Ethereum, we're overbought on the weekly. Maybe one more week if we close green. That's kind of like tied with Bitcoin. I think there is a potential short squeeze in there, somewhere between like 1680 and maybe 1750 would be a good liquidity range. One last short squeeze again, just to trap late longs and hurt all the shorts that are opening up currently. Wouldn't anticipate that. I would anticipate that happening before CPI, if anything. But again, it could play out into the weekend. I wouldn't be surprised by that either. And then we're going to look at Chainlink. I'm going to pull up Chainlink right now. I'm going to share my screen. Just want to look at this continuation pattern that's been playing out. All right, I'm going to share right now, JWeb.
There we go.
So we're looking at this continuation pattern. It's marked with the orange crosses, the lines there. And if we see this, the leg's coming down still. So that is anticipated bearish pennant. So it's just rising. It's trading in this channel right here. So if it does go to the downside, I would anticipate it maybe testing right around here, which would be around $6.9, $7. We can see on the weekly that it is currently way overbought down here. And volume is coming down a little bit on the weekly. So that means that there's more likely to be more volume coming in, but it would be sell volume. And I got the levels of support here. We got this main level support, which is 494, which we can see from the previous bull run. That's where we have a couple of touches on that line. But if we break through that, there's also levels below it. And then down here at 382, I wouldn't get too greedy and hope for that level. I think that these two levels, this range between 450 and 494 would be a good level. Now let's see. And then for some of the other coins, Polygon, we're trading in this bullish pennant, or bullish flag right now, or bearish flag. I can't speak today. we're trading this bearish flag, and I'm going to show you guys this because this is really interesting to me. So I think a lot of the Matic news that came out last week really pushed it to test this upward trend of the parallel channel. As we can see, this massive green line that just shot up. And this is on the news of Facebook and Instagram and the NFTs. And we've been trading in this for a while. This is the daily. So since May 22nd, we've been trading between these two levels. So I think we're going to hit this upper level, which is around 133, before we start to see some downside. And we can see we're overbought in the daily. If we go to the weekly, we are definitely way overbought. And the last time we were overbought again was right up here. So that's what, I guess, the all-time high. And then we came all the way down. So we're going to go back up to overbought. And I would anticipate another last leg down. The weird thing with Matic, though, is that we bottomed down in June, or right there. Yeah, right around June on the 15th at 33 cents. And we've shot up all the way to $1.27. If most coins haven't bottomed yet, in my opinion, they haven't. And Bitcoin hasn't either. And it looks like there's a ton of room to the downside. I'm not too sure what's going to happen with Matic. We could potentially see another double bottom where it hits 33 cents, or we can see it hit earlier support. That would be bloody. That would be terrible for Matic and altcoins. I don't know if the bullish sentiment itself right now is going to keep it afloat, but it's definitely something interesting to see. I might even put some bids in at some of those lower support levels if this starts to turn to the downside.
Okay. Yeah, how about Cardano? I know you're a big Cardano guy.
Oh, I love Cardano. Cardano, it's currently the major support is at 38 cents. So you break that, you're probably going to test 33 cents. Probably trading that range or so. But if 33 cents doesn't hold, we're probably looking at like 19 to 22 cents is the bear market bottom. And let me just look at the chart real quick. I'm just going to do a quick math with the ruler. There, down to that. Down to 19 cents, that'd be 55% drop from where we currently are. So that lines up with 35 to 50 I was saying prior, but maybe it's turned to like 50 to 60% drops for most coins from here. And that definitely applies for Solana. Solana is looking terrible right now. Out of all coins, I would say this one looks like it's going to take the biggest hit. It might be the news between FTX and just people are they don't trust it after all the blackouts that we saw throughout the bear market and the bull market. We're looking at currently, too many tabs, too many coins I'm looking at right now. We're at $32. Let's see this. Next support would be somewhere down around $14. So that's a 55% drop. Again, that's in line with Cardano. It looks like to be from on the weekly, but on the daily, we're looking at, it's starting to turn to the downside. So we could see a little bit of price movement down before we see price movement up, unless we see a capitulation event where we just take. That's all I got for those alts.
It all sounds really rosy. Are you currently shorting anything? Do you just have, are you still mainly in cash, just waiting to buy some of these if they hit the support levels that you've been that you have set?
Yeah, so I don't want to short anything as of right now in terms of like using leverage or stuff like that, because that's up and down. I'm going to lose that game every day of the week. But right now I'm just sitting in cash. I shorted a long time ago, back in like June, May even. And I've just been sitting in cash waiting for a lot of this to play out. I'm not even trading Bitcoin anymore. I'm just waiting for that to start to make its descent down. I anticipate it to move down at some point so soon. Like it's been a waiting game. You're never going to get timing right, but the technicals and all the indicators and a lot of what people in the market are doing, there's a lot of whales who are de-risking. Like larger wallets are selling their Bitcoin while institutional wallets are increasing at this time. That's very similar to what we saw in 2018 when we saw the market drop from 6.4K to 3.1K. So that could lead us into the bear market bottom. I don't know if it's going to be an event or if it's just going to be pure manipulation that just puts fear into every retail investor.
Yeah, I wasn't here for crypto back in 2017, 2018. My understanding is that like we should use some of the lessons learned, but at the same time, we have to look at how the narrative is different now. and it does feel very different as far as like I had heard about, when Bitcoin went on its crazy run back in 2017 or whatever. And my dad was like, what's this Bitcoin thing? That's when you know that it's the top and it's time to sell when your parents ask you about crypto. But I don't know, like, this is where kind of the fun comes in, is like, how much has the narrative really changed? And while I get that people are de-risking, like, it could switch at a moment's notice. And like, yes, the macro is bad and interest rates are going to keep going up for a bit, but at some point that will get priced in. And so, when is the right time to buy is that's why I personally I keep just dollar cost averaging, because I don't want to have to make that decision. But it just does seem like at some point, everything will be priced, or everything that can be priced in will be priced in. There's always going to be stuff, black swan events that we can't predict. So at what point is that priced in, and is the reasonable time to start, making your buys? Is this the billion-dollar question that no one really has the answer to?
The thing that's like weird for me is obviously whales who want to make the most amount of money have made the most amount of money in this space. They want to be able to accumulate it at a certain level. And I think the levels right now are too high where they could make, sure, they could make a lot of money if they accumulate here and, hold over time. But if they're moving the market and they're making the market, I think they're going to try and get retail to sell them Bitcoin super cheap. And that price has to come down at some point. Retail usually never wins. It's unfortunate, but unless they're holding on for a long time and, they stay in the space, usually they get shaken out because they don't have the funds to support, these holds, say mortgage rates or anything like that, or people can't afford heating, stuff like that. Bitcoin doesn't look as lucrative when it's at 19K, 20K as when it did is at 60K. They're going to sell that so they can afford for their way of living. So at some point, these whales, these institutional wallets are going to be able to break retail, in my opinion, to the point where they sell and they buy cheap.
Okay. Yeah, it's and then, if we talk about like people needing that money too, like we're not going to get the government, we're probably not going to get the government handouts the way that we did a few years ago. And we've discussed how bad consumer debt is in this country right now, and mortgage rates and all that stuff. So it does just feel like a matter of time before, I would love to know the percentage of money, Bitcoin that is held by retail versus, the big players in the space, because that's very telling. I feel like there's a lot of, but at the same time, I'm just like talking out loud here. Like how many retail people that don't believe in the long-term value of crypto are still holding on at this point to their Bitcoin? Like a lot, is it a lot of them, or is it, I just don't know.
I genuinely don't know either, but I'd be surprised. That's actually a really good question. I think most people who, if they don't have that belief that crypto is going to be here long term, they've been out of it for a while, I would have to assume.
Right? Like that's where I go back at too, is like, I get that we could see Bitcoin go down to 14K or lower. And like and if it does happen, I'm just going to buy more of it. But at the same time, like what's it going to take to shake out the people that are still here? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. That's one thing I always have problems with. Like when you go on Twitter, you get these influencers and accounts, and they're always saying like, this is bullish, just stack sats, which in my opinion is one of the worst phrases in the entire crypto space. I can't stand when people say I'm stacking sats. I can't even say it. I hate it. But it's so foolish to me when you tell people to buy at bad entry levels. That drives me insane. But it would have to be manipulation or a terrible event that would shake, like you lost your Bitcoin, you gambled with it. You thought you were going to go rich because everyone was saying it was going to the moon. Every article currently coming out from Cointelegraph and all these other CoinDesk are saying, Bitcoin's going to go on a tear to 45, 100K, whatever it is. We would have to just absolutely get destroyed. Like something would have to happen, like a Terra Luna event would have to happen for people that have been in the space that believe in it to get shaken out that bad.
Yeah.
Or regulation too.
And I hope we don't. Well, I hope we don't see the terrible part of the terrible, possible outcome, play out, because that that'd be something like really, really bad, like nuclear war, and Lord knows none of us want to see that happen. Yeah. So on that rosy note, I think that is a good way to close it out today. Hope today's episode was enjoyable for everyone who is watching the replay of it. We'll be back on Thursday afternoon, discuss kind of what's going on in the markets post midterms, post CPI, how we think things are going to play out in the coming weeks. So Kevin, appreciate your time as always today. Any final thoughts to send the people out?
Have a great Monday.
All right, there we go. You heard it. Have a great week, everybody. For Kevin, for Jeremy, we'll be back on Thursday, and we will see you next time.
Take care, everyone.